What's going on, everyone? Packer Plug back here, and this is the first episode of my Packer podcast. We'll be talking about all things Packers, and we're gonna get into it. And today's just gonna be a recap, kind of just of the season, talking about where we are as a team. This is a Green Bay Packers team that we started the year losing Aaron Rodgers, having Jordan Love as the first time being our starter, coming to the season with a lot of questions. Where's this Green Bay Packer team going to be at? How are we going to play? Very low expectations for the whole team. And, we came into the season kind of at a high. You come into the season and Jordan Love is playing pretty all right. You go and you win a couple of games. You start off the season in Chicago, destroying the Bears. Great rivalry, destroying the Bears as always. Continuing the ownership. You go on to beat the Saints. You lose at the Falcons, and then you go on to lose a couple more games, and things started to get a little rocky. Jordan Love wasn't playing as well. The defense wasn't clicking as well. Defense giving up a lot of run yards. And I think the sense here in Green Bay is, a lot of people weren't the biggest fan of Joe Barry. I mean, people still aren't the biggest fan of Joe Barry. Just because how the defense is run and kind of this bend, don't break mentality. But, as of late, this Joe Barry defense has been a lot better. But in the beginning of the year, and maybe through the mid-beginning of the year, you start thinking, maybe Joe Barry doesn't got it. This defense is struggling. These young receivers on the offense aren't catching footballs. Jordan Love's accuracy is all over the place. You start losing games. You go to Las Vegas. You lose really bad. Jordan Love throws a late interception when he has a chance to win it driving down the field. And you start losing games. And, I think a lot of the Green Bay Packers fan base thought, this is just going to be one of those years. We're going to have to ride this out. We're not going to do well. Probably just tank for the rest of the season and hopefully get a great draft pick. And really wondering, man, maybe Jordan Love is not going to be the answer. And then this Green Bay Packer team goes on an absolute tear in the last 3 weeks. You win one against the Rams, and then you come and you win against the Chargers, winning against Justin Herbert. In a game that was really competitive, that Love played phenomenally well, and he's finally hitting passes. His accuracy is improving. The team is clicking. These young receivers are clicking. You got lucky there with the last drive with the Chargers, them dropping a ball that luckily saved us the game, because had Justin Herbert completed that pass down the sideline on their final drive, who knows? Maybe the Chargers would have won that game. But the point is, the Packers were competitive, and they stayed in the game the whole way through, and ended up getting a big win in Lambeau Field. And then you're still thinking the season's kind of it's a little out of reach. Playoffs most likely aren't going to happen. And the Packers travel up to Detroit on Thanksgiving and get a huge win. And Jordan Love continues his success. His accuracy continues to improve. I mean, some of those passes Jordan Love was making were phenomenal, where they're 20 yards away from the end zone, and he splits it right between two defenders, two receivers coming across, and gets a touchdown and gets a big win on a primetime game on Thanksgiving against the 8-3 Detroit Lions team that is really good. A team that's really good. A team that is right now controlling this NFC North division. And, this Packers team is surging with a chance to now make the playoffs. You come back home and you're playing the Chiefs on a Sunday night football game, prime time. Patrick Mahomes, Taylor Swift is coming to the game. The whole league has their eyes on this game. Really an opportunity for this Packers team to solidify who they are, coming off a 2-game win streak, and really, have an opportunity to, at home, show the world, hey, we're legit. The Chiefs come to Lambeau Field, and it was a competitive game. Came down to the wire, but make no mistake about it, the Packers dominated in that game. The Packers offensively controlled the ball and pushed around a very good Chiefs defense. This was not a fluke win. And there has been a couple fluke wins this season. This was not one of them. This was not one of them. Jordan Love played out of his mind with 3 TD passes, 0 interceptions. Our defense played phenomenal. We gave up some yards. We gave up some yards to Pacheco. We struggled a little bit with the run game. That's kind of been a theme, is us struggling against the run game. But the Chiefs opted to throw it with Mahomes and didn't do all that great. Travis Kelce didn't do all that great this game. We're able to hold them. Keyshawn Nixon with a big interception late in the game that really helped us. Some controversial calls that went our way. Some controversial calls that went their way too. And the Packers pulled out a big win on Sunday night to beat the Chiefs. And now we sit here at 6-6 with the 7th seed in the playoffs with an opportunity to go on a run to maybe make the playoffs. But we'll talk about that. This is also a Packers team that is kind of decimated with injuries right now. Some big injuries being Aaron Jones, who's still questionable. Jair Alexander, who's questionable, who, you're really unsure why he's been out for so long, why he's missing so many games. And big part of that defense, probably the best cornerback we have, the best cornerback in the league. We traded Rasul Douglas, and so you really need Jair. But we've had guys that have stepped up and filled those roles. Struggling at tight end, we're injured. And now you have Watson, who late in that Chiefs game got injured, his hamstring issues. And now you're going into this next week, these next 5 games with this remaining schedule that is incredibly easy. It is tailor-made for this Green Bay Packers team to make the playoffs. It's huge, and it's an easy 5 games. So you go to New York on a Monday night, very easy game. They're on Tommy DeVito. The stats and the numbers all are going your way. Primetime game, another chance for Jordan Love to really show that he's the guy. So you go to the Giants, then you come back, you play the Buccaneers. A Bucs game you should definitely win. And then you have the Panthers, which is worst team in the NFL. That should be an absolute dominating win by them. Should be Jordan Love's best game of his career. Should be Matt LaFleur's best coaching game of the year. And then you have 2 divisional opponents at the end. The Minnesota Vikings, second to last week, which is probably going to be the hardest out of all these games coming down the stretch. The Minnesota Vikings will probably give you the hardest, toughest game. And then you finish at home against the Chicago Bears, which is always a win. Keep the ownership going, always a win. And if you can win all 5 of those games, you can win 4 of those games, boom, you're sneaking right into the playoffs. And if Jordan Love can keep it going, this Joe Barry defense can keep holding up. Maybe these injuries go well and we get some of these guys back. This should be a 5-game win streak down the stretch and an impressive show of dominance from the Green Bay Packers to secure you a spot in the playoffs. And who knows, Lions lose more games, have some unlucky stretch, maybe you're coming away with the division. Who knows? You never know. Crazier things have happened, crazier things can happen, and we'll see what happens. As for, I want to talk about Jordan Love just a little bit and the expectations he's had to face through this entire season. After starting the season, a lot of Green Bay Packers were not happy with how we got rid of Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people were talking about Brian Gutekunst not knowing what he's doing. Him getting a lot of hate for kind of pushing Aaron Rodgers out the door, and the whole situation with that down the stretch, taking Jordan all those years back ago in the draft when we had a star quarterback still in his prime, 1 game away from the Super Bowl, and the Green Bay Packers go out and draft Jordan Love, thinking about the future with their first-round draft pick when a lot of people really wanted a wide receiver, really wanted someone, another star, to come through to Green Bay to help push us into that Super Bowl level contending that we could have been. But, the Green Bay Packers didn't do that. They took Jordan Love. A lot of people were upset about it. Aaron Rodgers had his whole thing back and forth with the front office for years. And you finally had Aaron Rodgers leave, goes to the New York Jets, and you have Jordan Love coming in with a lot of people saying he's not going to be great. Him facing all these expectations, having to go through what Aaron kind of went through with Brett Favre, and a lot of that divide of the Packers fan base. And Jordan Love has handled it like such a professional. Jordan Love is extremely professional, has been extremely quiet on the whole situation, and has come out here and really shown that he's a great player. Again, those first weeks, coming right out the jump, being phenomenal, having struggles, but then coming right back. He's a resilient guy. And to deal with all that, to deal with all those expectations, to deal with being behind such a great star in Green Bay, and kind of not having that acceptance from the Green Bay Packer fan base at first when you were drafted, coming out here and balling out this season, it's amazing. Jordan Love deserves everything. He's looked hot these last games, man. He is hitting passes that are perfectly in rhythm. He's hitting receivers that are perfectly in rhythm, really getting that connection with these young receivers, with Watson, with Dobbs, with all these guys, with Wicks, with Reed. And you hope it continues. You hope it's successful, and he's a young guy. That's what's so exciting, is the Packers could have another great quarterback, and here we are at the beginning of his career. He's super young. The ceiling is incredibly high, and this Packers offense is stacked with receivers. These young receivers are all going to be stars. They're all phenomenal. Wicks, Reed, Watson, Dobbs, they're all star guys that are explosive and fast and twitchy and phenomenal. And it's crazy, the ceiling that the Green Bay Packers have right now. It's unbelievable to think that we could have a third straight quarterback who is off the charts with his talent. And now you see it. Jordan Love has displayed it. The question is, can he be consistent? Because now you know what he's capable of. He's shown it time and time again. We know what's in there now. Now the question is, can we sustain it? And can he keep improving, or is he going to regress and be inconsistent? I would say he's more likely going to keep growing and improving, because, you find the mistakes and you correct them. And Aaron Rodgers was even on the Pat McAfee podcast the other day saying that, you can improve accuracy. It starts with the ground up. You improve your fundamentals. It improves every aspect of your game, and that includes your accuracy. I think Jordan Love is going to keep doing phenomenal. I think we're going to win these 5 games. We're going to come out of this as a playoff team, maybe even winning a playoff game or two. Who knows? Maybe even, dare I say, make a Super Bowl. That year that the Packers won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, the Packers were a wild card team. So anything is possible. Moving on from Jordan Love, though, because that's what everyone was talking about. Moving on from that, talking about Matt LaFleur, talking about the coaches in general, too, and Joe Barry even a little bit. Yeah, Joe Barry's a guy that, if you hear from Green Bay, you've heard it. Joe Barry's very maybe unliked because of his defensive style. But if you look at this defense over the last weeks, even through majority of the season, you see that this defense holds teams to around 20 points, which is actually really good, especially there's games where we hold them under 20 points. And those are winnable games when you can hold a team under 20 points and your offense performs. Winnable games. And Joe Barry has, especially in the last 4 weeks, he's been phenomenal. He's been holding these teams under 20 points, and he's been doing a great job. Our run defense is something that's, a little less than to be desired, but, our defense is held up. It's a bend, don't break mentality, and they're doing great. Joe Barry is not a guy that I think should be fired. There was talks about Joe Barry should be fired. Joe Barry should be fired. I don't think he should be fired. I don't think he's been atrocious. I think there's been times where there's been some questionable things, but for the most part, he's getting the job done of holding these teams to low-scoring games, and that's what you want out of your defensive coordinator. To say he should be fired because our team isn't holding teams, but yet our offense has only scored maybe 1 touchdown in a game that we lost, but you're mad that the other team scored 14 points, and you're blaming the defenses. No, if you're holding a team to under 20 points, I'd say the defense is playing pretty well. It's the offense that's been struggling throughout the majority of the season and really clicking and getting these points on the board to give us a chance to win. Joe Barry is just fine. And all that Joe Barry needs to be fired talk is it's a little ridiculous. But moving on from Joe Barry, Matt LaFleur, someone who should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's really not. What he's been able to do, this is the youngest team in the NFL. And he went from coaching a team that for the last years has been Super Bowl contenders with Aaron Rodgers to now coaching a completely different team that is the youngest team in the NFL, has a new quarterback, all these young receivers, and to take this team and do what he's done so far, especially in this last stretch, and if he's able to close out these 5 games, you have a serious conversation on your hands of, can Matt LaFleur be considered coach of the year just because what he's done with this young squad and the expectations for the Packers being so low this year and him doing as well as he's done, especially in that Chiefs game. This was a Green Bay Packers team that was coached really well. They were doing a lot of different things that we've never seen this coaching staff do with Aaron Rodgers. And that may be because Aaron Rodgers had his own certain way of playing, and he was hitting his ins that were like 2-step ins and a lot of different things. This offense with Jordan Love, with Matt LaFleur, is very different than what we've seen in the past. Jordan Love is making very similar throws to Aaron Rodgers, but the play calling and the style this season is much different than it was with Aaron. And a lot of that credit goes to Matt LaFleur, what he's done with his offense, what he's done with these young players, and a lot of the credit that we give to Jordan Love, we should be giving to Matt LaFleur. Because he and even in the presser after the game against the Chiefs, he did say how this team is working harder, this coaching staff is working harder, they're putting in more hours, everyone's very committed. This is a football team that really loves football, and they're working their butts off, and it's paying off. And Matt LaFleur is the biggest key to that, in my opinion. The biggest key to that. And down this stretch, you win 5 games, you win 4 games, you sneak into playoffs, you win a playoff game, you win maybe 2 playoff games. We're having a conversation about Matt LaFleur for Coach of the Year. Anyways, guys, this was my first Packer podcast. It was very short. It's probably going to be 20 minutes, slightly under 20 minutes. Going forward, they're probably going to be an hour. This is the very first one. I just want to recap of everything we've had through the season so far to see where we're at, where we're going. And yeah, I'm really excited about this season. I'm really excited about where this Packer team is going, what they can do, and how hopeful you should be as a Packer fan, because we have so much opportunity ahead of us, especially with how young this team is and how well they're playing in this early stage. It's amazing. Anyways, I'm Packer Plug. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like, share this video. Go Pack, go.